Welcome back, everybody. So the questions come up. What's the difference between owning a Burmese python and a reticulated python? So that's what we're going to talk about when we come back today on Intrepid Exotics. So like I said, we're going to be talking about what the difference is between having a Burmese and a reticulated python. There's a lot of similarities, there's some pretty distinct differences, and we're going to talk about that under the backdrop of these waterfalls right here, which is a place where you may find both of these in the wild. Now, we can do this from an academic standpoint where we throw out a bunch of statistics and using their scientific names and whatnot, but the fact of the matter is, any of us can get online in 5-10 minutes, find all of those stats, and none of those stats are going to tell you anything about what it's like to wake up in the morning and go downstairs and take these guys out and clean their enclosures and feed them and interact with them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to be using examples from 3 of my bigger snakes. I've got my male Burmese python. He is 12 foot long, about 40 pounds right now. And you can see the picture of him going down the stairs right there. He was ready to go back home after I had him upstairs for a little while. And my female reticulated python, right after I'd let her out, she wanted to shoot upstairs and go play. Both of these snakes are 12 feet long. The Burm has got her by almost 10 pounds in weight, but their personalities are a whole lot different. For the sake of this conversation, I'm going to be using my male retic quite a bit. He is a 14-foot, 60-pound purple tiger retic, and he has got a personality all his own. He's pretty good size for a male. Reticulated pythons are sexually dimorphic, so the females tend to get larger than the males do, and males have got kind of a bad reputation, maybe for getting a little snippy around breeding time and so forth, and I've seen a lot of them that get like that. I've been really fortunate with mine though. He's really well behaved. And here's a couple quick facts on these guys. As you can see, they're pretty similar. There's one interesting fact that may be kind of counterintuitive though, especially with everything going on right now with the python hunts down in Florida, with all the invasive Burmese down there. Burmese are actually creeping up on the endangered list. They're listed as vulnerable right now. And much of that has to do, of course, as with everything else, is human encroachment on their natural habitat and hunting for their skins and so forth. Fortunately, reticulated pythons are still hanging in there, and they haven't been bumped up the scale yet. And there's a couple factors that may attribute to that. Some say reticulated pythons are a little bit smarter, which would make them a little bit more adaptable. They're also semi-arboreal, which kind of expands their habitat a little bit. As they age and they get older, they tend to spend more time terrestrially. But maybe those things have helped them out a little bit. And here's kind of a side-by-side of the 2 main animals that I'm going to be talking about today. Again, there's my albino Burmese python. His name's Apollo. He's about 6 years old, 12 foot, about 40 pounds. And my male reticulated python Tigger, who is a purple tiger reticulated, and he's 7 years old, about 14 foot and 60 pounds. So you'll see these two have got really distinct and different personalities about them. Now this right here is the part that everybody has their own opinions about, and I'm not even going to attempt to get specific because there's just entirely too many different, what's the biggest snake? You'll hear anything from 25 feet to 32 feet to ranging in weight from 500 pounds to 600, whatever. There's just so many. Snake stories are kind of like fish stories. Man, I've got this 35-foot python at home. What do you think about that? Typically, what you can expect to see. You know, hatchlings are born about 18 to 24 inches, both Burms and the Retics. They both come from eggs. They hatch out just about that length. And of course, reticulated pythons tend to be a little bit longer as a general rule, and Burmese pythons tend to be a little bit heavier. A unique thing about Retics that you don't see quite so much with Burmese pythons is there's what you call dwarfs. They're essentially, you know, from different smaller locations out there, and you contrast those with what you call the mainland Retics, which are actually on the continent. So the dwarf Retics, you know, there's several different islands out there where they tend to grow a little bit smaller. They're actually, you know, really highly sought in the pet trade because you don't have to worry about them getting 20 feet long. But you know, you're typically going to see those dwarfs hitting 7 to 8 feet, 12 to 13 feet. You know, they're going to be there in that range. What you call the mainland Retics that haven't really been bred in with those, you can expect to see those adults be probably 16 to 20 feet. And like I said, you'll hear the fish stories about them, but it's not really all that common that you're going to be running into 20 to 25 foot reticulated pythons. They're out there. They're not necessarily rare, but realistically, if you've got one, you can probably expect it to hit somewhere in that 16 to 18 foot mark. And like I said, the females tend to get larger than the males do. And you can kind of see a really good example of that in that side-by-side that I had up there of Apollo, my Burmese, next to my female retic. Because Apollo is maybe 6 years old, a male, and he's at 12 feet. My female retic is just over 2 years old, and she's already at 12 feet, and she's still growing pretty quickly. So she's gonna pass him right up. By the time she's 7 years old, like I say, she's gonna be somewhere between the 16 to 20 mark. It'd be awesome if she got bigger, but you know, only time will tell. So as far as size, that's pretty much what you can expect. They're not going to be a whole lot of differences between the size of them. Like I said, the Retics tend to get a little bit longer, the Burms tend to get a little bit heavier. So enough of that. You know, that's pretty much what you can expect with size. And really quick here, this is what a normal color pattern looks like on a Burmese. This is my baby female, and I have every anticipation that she is going to continue eating like a champ and just shoot right past Apollo in size. She should be a pretty good sized girl. I'm hoping that she gets at least about 16 feet, which would be awesome. These big Burms with that natural color pattern, always loved them. That's why I got her, and you know, hoping she turns into a real showstopper. So this is from one of my days taking Apollo outside, and this is honestly the fastest he's ever moved as far as I've seen. He was really motivated to get out and hustle that day, so we chased him around for a little bit. He wore himself out and then went ahead and curled up in the sun, basked for a little while. And this is what I mean about Burms being pretty much terrestrial snakes. Yeah, he went out, he checked out the tree, he got a couple feet up and decided, you know what, this just isn't for me. And he decided to go ahead and come back down on the ground and continue to scope stuff out. As far as handling these guys, this is how he is every time I've got him. He's just, you know, kind of curious, a little derpy sometimes, but yeah, he's really slow and really consistent, and for the most part, for a heavy snake, he's pretty easy to handle. I put this up here because you're going to see a distinct difference between how my Burm acts when he's in the living room and how my Retic acts when he's out in the living room. This guy stays pretty chill. His demeanor doesn't change a whole lot from this. And you kind of look in his eyes and you can kind of see a little bit of curiosity there, but you just don't see that same intelligence that you see with the Retics. And this is what Tigger, my male Retic, does when he gets out and sees a tree. And he is a handful, to say the least. Now, this is what I mean about them being semi-arboreal, and he gets out, he wants to climb anything that he gets within range of. And you've seen what my Burm does when he's inside. This is what Tigger does when he's inside. I've got to make sure all the tables are cleaned off, all the paintings are nailed down. Everything that he touches, he wants to crawl up. And it's a lot of fun to have him just running around like that, but you've got to make sure that you've got everything nailed down or moved off the tables. And here's another couple examples of having him outside. He's the going up to inspect the gutters on the left, and he's impersonating the snake oil salesman on the right there. And that's one thing about interacting with your reticulated pythons, is you really got to keep a close eye on them, because if you turn around, they're going to climb up something. Anything close to them, they're going to go up. That one tree that I had Tigger up in, I turned around one time, I swear it was no more than 3 seconds, and he was already 10 feet up that tree, which meant I was subsequently 10 feet up that tree trying to get him down, which was comical at that, to say the least. He was laughing at me the whole time. Fortunately, he was really pleasant about it, and he let me wrestle with him, let me get him unwrapped and get him down. But you can get yourself into trouble really quick trying to chase these guys out of some awkward places if you don't keep your eyes on them. Here's a really quick look at my female retic, and I put this girl up there mainly to just show that when you really focus on what this snake's doing, when you look at her eyes, you look at the way she interacts with her environment, and you can really see that there's something going on in that head of hers. She's scanning everything. She's got a multi-field depth of her senses that she's using. There's times where she'll be sitting there looking so intently you almost expect her to just raise up and start talking to you. These snakes are really intelligent, and they definitely know what's going on around them. They definitely recognize their keepers, and they remember the good experiences and the bad experiences, which is another reason why it's really important to make sure that your handling and husbandry is on point with these guys, because if you make mistakes, they will remember it. And like I said, this girl right here, she just looks intelligent. It's almost scary intelligent when you look at her sometimes. Oddly enough, it's not as much with Tigger, but definitely with her. And I've had her since she was a baby, so maybe that has something to do with it. I got Tigger a little bit later in life, but her and I seem to have a pretty good relationship going. So I'm really happy with her, and really can't wait for her to really get some size on her and become an impressive animal. But you can still see, Tigger here, he's doing the same thing. He has just got so much more depth to what's going on with him than the Burm does. And you can tell, people don't bother him at all. He's not even acknowledging my existence at this point. He's just hanging out and checking things out. You can always see that mind working, putting together everything that he sees and everything that he tastes and so forth. And he's just got a really awesome demeanor for such a big animal, and he's even not really a big retic. But overall, and like I said, the differences between Burms and retics, they're there. They're not really terribly significant though. You keep them pretty much the same way. You need pretty much the same size of enclosures for them. They're going to eat the same things. They're going to act. They're going to act really similar most of the time. There's not any glaring dissimilarities about them. But the differences that are there, they're pretty significant when you're used to dealing with both animals. Like I said, you'll definitely see distinct personality differences between them. You'll notice that the Retics tend to be a little bit smarter. They seem like they're a little bit more on point, and you've got to keep a much closer eye on your Retics than you do Burms. You just about guarantee if you find your Burm somewhere, he's going to be on the ground. Alternatively, you just about guarantee that if you lose your Retic, he's going to be up on top of something somewhere, which makes him a little bit more difficult to get back. So I guess if you were to ask me what my preference was between Burms and Retics, oh, and I keep forgetting to say this in the middle of the video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, get notified. We've always got stuff coming out. There, I got it out. Now, but yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me my preference, what my favorite one is, I'd have to go Retics, hands down. They're a lot of fun. That intellect and their energy is just so much fun to work with. Like I said, it's not to take anything away from the Burms, because those are still, you know, they're still fairly smart snakes. They're just not quite as exhausting to handle sometimes, even though, you know, they tend to be a little heavier and a little bulkier. They're not quite as active, which makes it a little bit easier in most cases. But yeah, you can't go wrong with a Retic. And for those of you that don't want to risk having to end up with an 18-20 foot animal, you know, there's always the localities that you can look at that are, you know, dwarfs, the super dwarfs, and so forth. You know, those animals are going to get like 7 to 12 feet long as adults, roughly. You know, kind of depending on how they're bred and so forth. But I mean, that's a general ballpark. But I mean, that's an option too. So you get that same awesome energy and intellect in a smaller snake that you don't need 2 and 3 people to handle all the time. So that's an option too. Again, guys, go ahead and jump in the comments. Let me know what you think of this. If there's anything else that you want to see, more detail on Burms, more detail on Retics, any other animal that you can think of. I've probably got a friend someplace that has it if I don't. And yeah, I've got no problem at all calling them up and say, hey man, let's make a video. And most of the time we're on board. So until next time, you guys hang in there, and I'll see you again in Intrepid Exotics.